What is an idiot? An idiot is someone who doesn't learn from their mistakes. Who, what is that George Bush line? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, you fool me once, you can't get fooled again. That is an idiot. George Bush is an idiot. An idiot is somebody who follows the idiom. We all follow the idiom, this idiom or that idiom. But if you follow the idiom without knowing consciously which idiom you're choosing, or whether you're conscious of the idiom itself, or you're conscious of the employment of that idiom, the employment of that idiom. If you aren't not even have a one-dimensional awareness of that idiom that you're employing, then we could consider you as the idiot, because then you would follow into that idiom on kind of without seeking to learn from the idiom, without seeking to have a reflection, because every idiom you have to have a reflection with it. Otherwise, you're an idiot. An idiot is in a more positive connotation. We can look at them as the fool. The fool is a necessary part of the council where the king and the nobility have a conversation with one another. In that room, there was a time when the nobility couldn't basically speak against anything that the sovereign said. It was an old school pharaonic style of rulership. Over time, with the Middle Eastern, European, and other evolutions, this kind of same kind of thing is in China as well, where you can have a head of state, but in the small room council where the decisions are being had, because obviously never has it just been the king, ever, right? It's always been every endeavor in human activity is done through groups and through some sorts of consideration of groups. And so in the small chamber, there was a right to speak, the right to speak in the small chamber without getting your head cut off. That took a long time to evolve, which is interesting, right? I tell my students we have 400,000 years of human history since fire, and civilization was invented 8,000 years ago. So what the heck were we doing for these 300, 200, 400,000 years, whatever the estimate you want to go for? Were we just chilling in caves? And in a way, we were. We were creating that monomyth, that Jungian, Campbellian monomyth that ultimately we would have to come and see as a limited point of view. Even the Jungian attempt, the subconscious attempt is amazing. The Jungian subconscious attempt is amazing. But at the end of the day, it must remain undefinable. And that kind of goes against this scholasticism, this institutionalization that is happening. So, scholasticism in the philosophy world, institutionalization in the more psychology world, meaning there needs to be a canonization of what is included in the library. And here's the thing, where you at some point are well read enough that you realize that there is an exclusion within the university as well. I mean, within academia, there has been a long-term exclusion, deliberate exclusion of material as well. It could be much bigger than it is. And those kinds of exclusionary tendencies methodologically then also find their way into our political economic system, i.e., through, for example, trying to privatize. And right now is the biggest case happening in India, where I think it's going on right now, where they're fighting over Sci-Hub and LibJet and all of these kinds of things are fighting for their existence in India. And hopefully the Indian government can ratify the freedom of information in this one sense, one time, please. Because the freedom of information movement has really been dead in its tracks for a very long time. In the last 5 years. I mean, it's the whole internet is new anyway, but it's been quite a struggle since Internet 2.0 was instituted. Internet 2.0 destroyed basically internet freedom, where now we have Facebook and Twitter on every website. Why? It used to be that websites, you know, didn't have to all be on Facebook. You were your own website. You know, you don't need to have everybody be on Instagram. There was a time when everybody just made their own websites even. And maybe hopefully we can go back to that at some point where we have much more free internet, free information. That was what all that stuff was about at one point. That was what the internet, the motivations of the internet were once about. Like everybody knows about what's his name? Watercolor on the Reddit guy who does watercolors. Shitty watercolor. That's his name. He just did shitty watercolors. He didn't do it for money. He just did it, and it was dope, and people liked it. And then he became recognized, and then it became recognized that the internet was indeed unstoppable in terms of its neoliberalism. What happened was couch surfing was overtaken by Airbnb. Right? Same thing with a lot of these Uberification of our what used to be Craigslist kind of free stuff culture at some point was much bigger. But now it's fully capital, fully subsumed. And that's not because of the internet itself. That's because it was structurally instituted that way after Internet 2.0. There was a structural change. And that, my friends, is why I focus. What's crazy is that, you know, my philosophy is influenced by Bernard Stiegler, who committed suicide, by the capitalist realist guy, Mark Fisher, who also passed away. There's a lot of these guys who have realized that their vision of the world, and Aaron Schwartz, you know, all these kids who were fighting for something worth living for in our futuristic dystopia. And that was basically taken away by something much more limited in imagination. And I say that even with my background. That's I love the aesthetic. Hopefully we'll have a future like this. But this is supposed to be my dystopia. This is my imagination for my dystopia, for this dystopia that we're living in. Not mine, of course, the artist is right there, but you know, it's our imagination, it's cyberpunk. We've all created it together. And this is just the study of that. This is the study of cyberpunk because we are already in past the event horizon. And that will be the touch up of my video that we are about to see. So thank you for taking the journey with me in this study, in our findings of how we can breathe when there's no clean air.